So are you ready? Please be seated. We will start in 10 seconds so that we will have very busy schedule today, so that it's good for every one of us to be ready to start as soon as possible, meaning immediately. So that and before we will begin, I ask any one of you speaking from a prepared text to hand that kind of material to the Secretariat in advance, because everybody can understand it helps a lot our interpreters' work and making that more productive and efficient. So that please, if you have any text in your mind to give the presentation by that, please could you hand that text to the Secretariat in advance. Thank you. And now we will start, and I would like to ask you first to adopt our agenda for this meeting. The paper is circulated. Every one of us, we know quite well all the single items on our agenda, and I suppose that the agenda is adopted. Yes, thank you. And then a few words about the activities of the President of the PA. And I want to say that I'm really happy to be in Georgia and in Tbilisi. It is very important to visit this specific city, this region, and this nation for various reasons. So welcome to Tbilisi, and it's absolutely great pleasure to see you all here at our 25th annual session. It's always a big social moment for every one of us. As you are all aware of, this session is special because earlier this year our Assembly celebrated our 25th anniversary. And 25 years of leading open and inclusive interparliamentary dialogue on the most challenging issues and trying to find solutions as well that truly deliver for our people in our OSCE area. Looking forward and summarizing what we have achieved over this quarter of a century, I have prepared a special report by the name Our Common Vision of the OSCE PA, Supporting OSCE Principles and Facilitating Parliamentary Dialogue, which you will find distributed here. The second thing to mention is that this is a great opportunity also for us to welcome new heads of the delegations to the Assembly, meaning Slovakia, Mr. Peter Osuszkowski. Please, can you raise up so that every one of us will... Can you raise up? Okay, great. Welcome. And from Kyrgyzstan, Mr. Omarbek Tekebayev, also welcome gentlemen to our members, to our assembly. And the third thing is that we really have very busy agenda today. In front of us today we have very demanding and politically important issues. So I will touch very briefly on my activities over the past months. First of all, developing the Assembly's capacities in addressing protracted conflicts in the OSCE area. And in front of you, I want to thank you, Doris Barnet, for Germany's generous extra budgetary contribution and political contribution, which enabled us to set up the April seminar in Leinsweiler. Thank you very much, Doris. I'm also grateful to the OSCE Conflict Prevention Center for the mediation retreat in Helsinki last May. I believe our Assembly has a huge potential on this yet to be fully used. I have also addressed the plenary session of the Interparliamentary Assembly of the CIS in St. Petersburg, holding constructive meeting with Chairman Narishkin and Matvienko from the Russian Federation on its sidelines, and moderated one of the panels of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly Roserocht seminar in Kyiv, also meeting with President Poroshenko, Ukrainian delegation to the OSCE PA, and also Nadia Savchenko. I would not elaborate much further unless there are some questions, any questions, as we need to proceed with the next agenda items. So if any, we're ready to try to answer, but if not, we will continue. Thank you. Then we go to the money issues, financial questions, reports, and issues from the Treasurer. We have a few important things for our next budgetary year, financial year, and I leave the floor to our Treasurer, Doris Barnet, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear members of the Standing Committee, as your Treasurer of the Assembly, I would like to start my report here in Tbilisi by warmly thanking the Parliament of Georgia for the support provided to our organization by hosting this annual session. My gratitude also to all those member parliaments that have hosted and will host Assembly meetings and events. The Assembly functions in an extremely cost-effective way, but we need the continuous support and solidarity of national delegations to ensure that the Assembly can continue its program of activities and meetings. I call on those delegations that have not yet hosted a meeting of the Assembly to do it soon, but not all at once. I'm pleased to report to the Standing Committee that the finances of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly continue to be in very good order, thanks to Gustavo Palares. In accordance with our rules of procedures, I presented the audited accounts to this committee in Vienna last February. I was very satisfied that the Assembly received a positive assessment from our outside independent professional auditor once again. Our auditor continues to be satisfied with the financial procedures and accountability carried out in our Secretariat. Attached to this report, you will find my proposal for the Assembly's budget for the next fiscal year, 1st of October 16 till 30 September 17. This proposal has been thoroughly prepared together with the Secretary General and his staff in order to reflect the minimum basic needs of the Assembly, and it was unanimously supported by the Bureau at its last meeting held in Copenhagen. This proposed draft budget, in accordance with our rules of procedures, was distributed to the Standing Committee last May, giving you ample time to review it. In this period, I have received no comments or questions from members about my proposal. The Secretary General and I have ensured that our budget complies with and reflects the efforts of our national legislatures to minimize expenses and remain within our objectives and of austerity and accountability in the use of our taxpayers' money. My proposal is to leave the budget as it is, with no significant increases or changes in the different categories, just a minor adjustment of 1.9% related to an increase of 59,000 euros in the total budget. There is an adjustment of 1.9% related to the staff expenses to reflect post-adjustment and contributions to the Danish pension fund, as well as education allowance to our staff dependents. All other categories, including salaries, travel and other meetings, publicity and other categories, will remain frozen. I perfectly understand that in all of our parliaments we are confronted with the need to freeze and reduce public budgets and to implement other restrictive measures to face and confront the economic crisis. The list of national contributions for the fiscal year that started 1st October 2015 and will conclude on 30 September 2016 is attached. As you can see, we have received almost 100% of our annual budgets, as only one parliament, Uzbekistan, out of 57 has not paid its dues. In accordance with Rule 41, Paragraph 4 of our Rules of Procedures, national contributions to the budget of the Parliamentary Assembly shall be appointed according to the formula used to divide the cost of the Intergovernmental OSCE. In this context, I would like to remind the Standing Committee that the Permanent Council of the OSCE has approved the scales of contribution to the OSCE on 17 December 2015 to maintain for this year the scales of contribution set in 2013. Thus, the current percentages of the national delegations' contribution to the Assembly will also remain the same during this period. I welcome the ongoing process to suggest improvements to our system of contributions. But until we reach a consensus to amend our rules of procedures, we will continue implementing the current system. It is important that national delegations contribute to support the Assembly. This can be done by seconding personnel. We are very grateful to the Italian government for their support in currently seconding a staff member to our secretariat, or hosting Assembly meetings and events. Again, we are very grateful to Belarus Parliament for hosting our session in 2017 and Andorra for the autumn meeting next year. Extra budgetary contributions for specific events, election observation, and other seminars or conferences of interest to the OSCE EPA and its members. I'm at your entire disposal to discuss any proposals you may have to enhance the work of the Parliamentary Assembly. Let me conclude my report by congratulating our Secretary General, Mr. Roberto Montella, for his efforts to making this institution so efficient in such a transparent, accountable, and cost-effective way. And of course, I would like to thank the whole staff for what they have done for us so far and will do in the future. And so that you just know, the raise in percentage, which comes close to 60,000 euros for a year, means for a country which has to pay 1%, makes a raise of 600 euros a year. Or for countries like Azerbaijan or Montenegro, it means 30 euros per year raise. I guess this amount is adorable, and therefore I really please you to allow this raise for our budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you very much about your introduction and presentation. And now I have to ask, do you have any comments in the meeting? It was very clear report, and I think that we can approve the budget for the financial year starting from 1st of October to end the last day in September next year. Approved? Thank you very much, and the budget will be made available to the Assembly in accordance to our rules. Then we move further, practical and procedural matters for the 25th annual session. So, it is very important that members of the Standing Committee will note the following. And it is that the deadline for nominations of Assembly's officers will be 10 a.m. next Monday, 4th of July. 10 a.m. on Monday. And the elections for Assembly officers will be held on the morning of Tuesday, 5th July, between 9 and 11. So these very important deadlines for nominations and elections. Is it clear for everyone? Any questions? Any comments? No? Thank you. We move forward. 4x1, ratification of the membership of general committees. So in accordance with our rules, membership of the general committees shall be ratified by the Standing Committee or the Bureau. All delegations have been reminded of the request of the Standing Committee that the distribution of members between the three general committees should be as equal as possible. So the Secretary General has indicated to me that these rules have been observed and that the Secretariat is distributing voting cards for the three committees in accordance with as equal as division as possible to comply with this. So I think that membership of the general committees is very clear and agreed by the Standing Committee. Yes, thank you. And then we have another small item in our hands. It's supplementary items. And also in this context, I start by referring our rules of procedure, and there is a text that the agenda of the annual session may be supplemented by an item or a motion on any matter within the competence of the OSCE, and which doesn't relate directly to subjects proposed by the general reporters to the three different committees. So these are the general framework in our procedures. In preparation for this annual session here in Tbilisi, the International Secretariat has received 19 supplementary items with sufficient support for further decision by the Standing Committee regarding inclusion on the agenda of the annual session. So, it is for the first time since rules were amended 2-3 years ago, the Standing Committee has been presented with more than 15 items. Rule 21 by 1 states that the Standing Committee may place only the maximum 15 supplementary items on the agenda of our annual session. Unfortunately, there is no guidance in the rules of procedure on how the Standing Committee is to decide which supplementary items should be placed on the agenda of our session. It is for the Standing Committee to decide by 2/3 majority of votes cast whether to place each supplementary item on the agenda of the Assembly. However, as I have already explained, the Standing Committee may place only 15 items on the Assembly's agenda. I have therefore decided to proceed as follows. I'll tell you. So that all 19 of the supplementary items, which members of the Assembly have prepared and put forward for our consideration, all of those deserve the chance to be put to the Standing Committee. I will therefore put each supplementary item to the vote by the Standing Committee, and if an item doesn't gain the support of 2/3 of the votes cast, then it will be not go any further, of course, unless it meets the requirements of Rule 25/3. When we have voted on all 19 of the supplementary items, if more than 15 supplementary items have gained a 2/3 majority, we will draw lots to decide which of those 15 items will be placed on the agenda of the annual session and which items will not be put aside. For maximum transparency, the draw will be held here at the podium in front of you in full view of all members of the Standing Committee. I regret that may mean that some items which the Standing Committee decides ought to go further to the annual session will not be able to be placed on the agenda. That's very natural. However, our rules are very, very clear and exact that only 15 items can go forward. So, drawing lots is the fairest way to decide which items should go forward if more than 15 items gain a 2/3 majority. This is the idea and this is the procedure. We have to follow this also according to our rules, even if there's a need to make some reforms and exact some details in that procedure. But this is a procedure, agreed. Thank you. And now I ask our secretariat to make the practical arrangements to go further with this idea, how to make it work in here. I remind you that in accordance with Rule 34, members of Bureau and the officers of general committees may not vote in the Standing Committee unless they are acting in the capacity of the head of delegation. And we will use also, every one of us has understood the procedure just described. Thank you. And now we will go further, please. Can you?
So the Standing Committee will now vote on each supplementary item to decide whether it has a two-thirds majority. The first supplementary item on the list is the item on violations of human rights and fundamental freedoms in Crimea, which has been put forward by Ms. Ahafanova of Ukraine.
Gerasimov.
Dear Mr. President, dear colleagues, protection of human rights, dignity, and fundamental freedoms are at the core of OSCE concept of comprehensive security. And when we are speaking about this supplementary item, let me remind you that one at the most glaring violations of human rights now taking place in the Russia-occupied territories of Ukraine, in particular in Crimea. Also, we want to bring your attention to the 14th report by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights on the human rights situation in Ukraine, which was based on findings on the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine and covers period exactly this year. And according to the mission findings, the human rights situation in Crimea drastically increased and in real troubles, especially after the ban of the Majlis. So I kindly ask you to support including of this supplementary item into the our assembly debates, and also taking into account the importance of this resolution, we kindly ask you to support an idea to move it from the third committee discussions to the plenary, if it's possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, but I'm very sure that we have to vote immediately on each of the single items in here. And okay, very briefly, Kovalov.
Господин председатель, уважаемые дамы, господа, естественно, совершенно Россия против этой резолюции, поскольку она по своей сути носит конфронтационный характер и абсолютно необъективна. Но я вам скажу, что если уж говорить о нарушении прав человека, то надо, конечно, в резолюции упоминать такой факт, как гибель людей по вине руководителей крымско-татарского меджлиса, что произошло 26 февраля 2014 года. Поэтому резолюция не объективна, она однобокая. Конечно, Россия будет голосовать против, но я бы хотел призвать всех, с учетом того, что мы собрались здесь, в Грузии, и грузинские коллеги продемонстрировали абсолютное желание и волю к сотрудничеству, все-таки соответствовать названию нашей организации. Напомню, извините, банальную истину. Организация по безопасности и сотрудничеству в Европе. Вот безопасностью и сотрудничеством я бы выделил и уделил основное время. Поэтому я бы просил членов постоянного комитета эту резолюцию из обсуждения исключить на сегодняшней сессии, доработать ее и внести на следующие сессии парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ. Спасибо.
Okay, thank you. And now it's enough for the discussion. And now we will vote. And will those in favor raise their cards? Do they have the cards? Yes. And now, please, can you make the operation?
How many do you have?
And now, those against, please raise your cards.
Two.
Can you tell the figures?
Those in favour 30, those against 2. So a two-thirds majority has been obtained.
Okay, thank you. And then number 2.
The next item is on possible contributions of the OSCE parliamentary...
Point of order.
У нас 53 делегации участвуют.
У нас 53 делегации участвуют. Правильно я проинформировал по цифрам? 53.
2/3,
2/3. Сколько будет от 53, господин председатель?
34.
Насколько
It's
я
a
следующий в арифметике,
two-thirds
34.
majority of the votes cast is required under Rule 21(1). A two-thirds majority of the votes cast. 32 votes were cast.
Okay, and now we move to the number 2.
So we now come to item 2, which is possible contributions of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly to developing effective response to crisis and conflicts by Ms. Barnett of Germany.
Thank you. And now, those in favor, please raise your cards. This is very fast mechanism. Okay, thank you. And then those against?
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 Is that one?
No, Bulgaria, but I think she's still
Bulgaria.
is against.
How is that?
No.
Okay, it was just to say hello. Okay, thank you. So, and the numbers?
40 votes in favour, no votes against.
Okay, thank you. And then number 3, please.
The third item is on law enforcement coordination to prevent child sexual exploitation and trafficking by known sex offenders, put forward by Mr. Smith of the USA.
Thank you. And then first, do you want to say just a word? Yes, please.
Just a brief word, Mr. President. In 1999, at St. Petersburg, I offered the first resolution in this assembly on combating human trafficking. It passed, it was contentious, but all of us have passed laws ever since. I've written 4 of them for the United States. The most recent tracks what this resolution is all about, trying to mitigate and end the scourge of child sex tourism, especially by convicted pedophiles. We have 49 co-sponsors on this resolution. It has a strong groundswell of support, and I do hope we will, as a standing committee, approve it.
Thank you. And now, those in favor? And then, thank you. Then those who are against? No one? Thank you. And the figures?
39 votes in favour, no votes against.
Okay, thank you. Then the next one?
This is now item 4, acting against corruption in the OSCE region to strengthen the rule of law, proposed by Ms. Cederfelt of Sweden.
So thank you, and then we will vote. Those who are in favor of that item.
Twenty. 21.
Thank you, and then those who don't agree, who are against? Nobody? Okay, thank you.
38 votes in favour, none against.
Thank you, and then number 4?
Yeah.
Number 5. It's not.
Yep. We're now on item 5, which is a call for OSCE action to address violence and discrimination, proposed by Mr. Cardin of the USA.
Put it away. Thank you. Okay, those are for that. Ready? And then, who don't accept, please raise your cards. Against.
Okay.
Okay, nobody? Thank you.
38 votes in favour, none against.
Thank you. And then number 6.
Item 6 is on strengthening relations between the OSCE-PA and the OSCE, proposed by Mr. Steingrimsson of Iceland.
In favor, please. And then, thank you, then those against. I can't see anybody. Thank you.
34 votes in favour, none against.
Thank you. Number 7.
Item 7 is on the conflict in Georgia, proposed by Mr. Usupashvili of Georgia.
Okay, then those who are in favor, please.
Thirteen.
Thank you. And then against. We can see 2. So the figures.
28 votes in favour and 2 against.
Okay, thank you. Then we move to number 8.
Item 8 is on the rights of refugees, proposed by Mr. Voisin of France.
And so, immediately in favor. Thank you. And those against? None? Thank you.
36 votes in favour, none against.
And now we are at number 9.
Item 9 is on reconsolidating European security as a common project, proposed by Mr. Lombardi of Switzerland.
So those who are in favor? And thank you. And then who are against? And the figures?
30 votes in favour, 2 against.
Okay, thank you. And then number 10.
Item 10 concerns the security challenges of migration, proposed by Ms. Dobesova of the Czech Republic.
Thank you. Then who are in favor of that? Please raise your cards. Thank you. And then who are against?
Are you against?
No, Georgia.
Georgia,
Against?
are you against?
1 and 2.
2.
2.
Thank you.
31 votes in favour and 2 against.
Thank you. Then number 11.
Item 11 concerns the Republic of Moldova and is proposed by Ms. Dade of Albania. Dada,
yes,
Dada of Albania.
Mrs. Dada.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appeal on all my colleagues here to adopt this resolution. It comes after a very fruitful visit, and it is, very balanced, and all the sentiments of all sides there have been taken into consideration. At the same time, it is timely because, as we all know, they have relaunched the negotiations with the most important actors on board. So it's a right moment that the Parliamentary Assembly adopts this supplementary item. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And now we will vote. So please raise your cards if you are in favor of that. Mm.
13. Okay.
And thank you. And then those who are against? Italy? That's a women power. Good. So none of you.
33 votes in favour and none against.
Thank you. Then we move to number 12.
Item 12, integrating gender-based analysis and gender mainstreaming in the response to the migrant and refugee crisis, tabled by Heidi Fry of Canada.
Okay, then who are in favor?
16.
Okay.
And thank you. And then who are against? Who are against?
Italy?
No, she's making a picture.
Yeah.
She doesn't.
Against? No?
No? Okay.
33 votes in favour and none against.
Okay, thank you. And then number 13.
Item 13 is on the 30th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster. It's tabled by Mr. Gerasimov of Ukraine.
All right, then who are in favor of that item? Okay, thank you. And then those who are against? None? Thank
32 votes in favour, none against.
Thank you. Then we will consider what to do with the item number 14.
Item 14 is on the need for OSCE participating states to elaborate and implement joint measures to combat manifestations of neo-Nazism, tabled by Mr. Kovalev of the Russian Federation.
So you want to speak? Okay, briefly, please.
I would like to encourage the delegates to vote against this resolution because it is clear that Russia is using the rhetoric of fascism to smear its political opponents and countries. So I think that it is not supportable, and I encourage to vote against it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those who want
He wants to.
Kovalov.
Нет, вот это.
Уважаемые господа, ну, честно говоря, я первый раз вижу такой оборот. Пользуется Россия риторикой фашизма для того, чтобы оправдать. Ну, слушайте, ну нет никаких двойных течений в этой резолюции. Мы все видим опасность распространения неонацизма во всех регионах ОБСЕ. Кстати, исключением не является и Россия. Тоже такая опасность существует. Поэтому, я долго думал, какая же аргументация может быть применена для того, чтобы просто не принимать резолюцию из-за того, что она внесена Российской Федерацией. Но я даже в фантазиях не мог представить, что таким образом можно перевернуть ситуацию, попытаться... Я еще раз прошу вас, мы все понимаем опасность распространения этого явления. Оно чревато гибелью новых и новых людей. Поэтому поддержите, мне кажется, нет аргументов против. Каждый здравомыслящий человек просто видит эту опасность, осознает ее и обязан сделать все возможное для того, чтобы предотвратить распространение этой чумы дальше. Спасибо.
Thank you. And now we go further by voting. And I ask every one of you to raise your cards if you are in favor of that item, please. Raise your cards.
Are you voting? Voting? No. 5? Yeah, I think it's 5, isn't it?
Thank you. And then,
9.
thank you. And then those who are against. Okay, and the figures?
So, sorry, how many? 5. Those in favour were 14, those against were 12, Therefore, the item does not have the required two-thirds majority.
Thank you. Then we go further. Number 15. Okay. So I have to tell you that when we are now in item 15, the need to equip passenger aircraft with additional technical means for monitoring conditions on board in real time, proposed by Mr. Kovalov of the Russian Federation. No amendments have been tabled to this item, so if it is now placed on the Assembly's agenda by Standing Committee, it will proceed anyway under Rule 21(3). Is the Standing Committee happy, therefore, not to place this item on the agenda, since it will proceed anyway under Rule 21(3)? If there is no objection, so I think that this is a procedure in this sense. Is it all right? Thank you. And now we move to number 16.
Item 16 is on enhanced cooperation and confidence building measures in the Baltic Sea region. It's proposed by Mr. Klimke of Germany.
Okay, great. Then those who are in favor of that item, please raise your cards. And thank you. And then against?
It's the only one that is for sure wrong.
There's none? Okay, thank you.
36 votes in favour, none against.
All right. Number 17.
Item 17 is on drinking water, fostering cooperation to protect a scarce resource adversely affected by climate change, proposed by Mr. Farrugia of Malta.
Okay, then those who are in favor of that idea?
Okay.
Thank you. And then those who are against that item, please raise your card. Or card. None? Thank you.
33 votes in favour, none against.
Thanks. And then number 18.
Item 18 is on natural resource management as a tool for preventing conflicts and environmental migrants, proposed by Ms. De Pietro of Italy.
All right. Then those in favor, please raise your cards.
Okay.
Thank you. And then those against? I can't see anybody. Okay, thank you.
30 votes in favour, none against.
Thanks. And then the last one, number 19.
Item 19 is a compromise supplementary item on unrestricted access of members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly attending official OSCE events and other activities, tabled by Mr. Lombardi of Switzerland.
Okay, then shortly, Gerasimov, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, we should all remember that sanctions have been imposed in response to the gravest violation of international law and OSCE norms and principles. And accordingly, personal sanctions as an element of this package of measures target those and only those responsible for this international crime regardless of their particular status. As for me, duration of the sanctions totally dependent on execution of the Minsk agreement. And this is very clear way. And truly speaking, it's a matter of regret that calling for lifting the personal sanctions in this supplementary item we see some manipulation with the Helsinki principles by selective referring to the content of the Helsinki Final Act. We do not see acceptable to compromise such cornerstone principles as respect to sovereignty and territorial integrity, inviolability of frontiers, non-use of force, all that Russia continues to violate. So, I kindly ask you to postpone this supplementary item to the next session.
Okay, anybody else want to speak? Yes, Switzerland, of course. Russia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, I think it's appropriate that we deal with this matter this year in this session. We are not here to discuss about the validity or the results and success or unsuccess of sanctions in general. We are only here, and the purpose of this compromise supplementary item is to say, as a parliamentary assembly, we have the task to make sure that our elected members of parliament in all member states are able to participate to all OSCE parliamentary events. This is the basics for confidence building, for dialogue, for trying to use this parliamentary assembly for the purpose for which it was created, which is give us a platform of dialogue between all member states. As soon as we start in any situation to say we don't want to discuss with this or with that representative, then we diminish enormously the efficiency and even the value of our parliamentary assembly. Even more, please note that the sanctions generally against or restrictions of freedom of movement of members of parliament are decided by governments. Once again, I think as parliamentarians we have the right to move in OSCE events because we are elected from the people and we are not supposed to be restricted by any government or international organization. So I urge you to accept to discuss this resolution in this session here in Tbilisi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then, if I know this right, Russia?
Знаете, господин председатель, уважаемые коллеги, я просто хотел сказать о том, что мне представляется некорректным обвинять господина Ломбарди в каких-то манипуляциях. Вот наш коллега Артур Герасимов сейчас это сделал. Но мне кажется, не совсем это правильно. Ну, как-то странно звучит. Какие манипуляции со стороны господина Ломбарди, которого мы знаем много лет, и со стороны Швейцарии, которая абсолютно объективно подходит к решению многих вопросов. Просто мне бы хотелось, чтобы вы, господин председатель, сделали хотя бы легкое такое пожелание не обижать и не оскорблять друг друга. Это путь конфронтации, он неправильный путь, это путь в никуда. Спасибо.
Thank you, Mr. Kovalov. Anybody else want to state? Okay, if not, then we go further, and I ask those who are in favor of the item number 19, please raise your cards.
11.
Okay, thank you. And then who are against?
Five again.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have 21 votes in favour, 10 votes against. Therefore, the two-thirds majority is achieved.
Then it means that now we have how many items do we have left on our list?
17.
So we have 17, and then we go further. And the procedure, you can explain the procedure.
17 items have gained a two-thirds majority in the Standing Committee. As the President explained earlier, the Standing Committee will therefore need to draw lots to decide which items are to be placed on the agenda of the annual session. Do we... yeah. Okay. So we're now going to place pages in the box one by one. First, violations of human rights and fundamentals and freedoms in Crimea. Next, the item on possible contributions to the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly to developing effective response to crisis and conflicts. The resolution on law enforcement coordination to prevent child sexual exploitation and trafficking by known sex offenders. The draft resolution on acting against corruption in the OSCE region to strengthen the rule of law. The draft resolution on a call for OSCE action to address violence and discrimination. The draft resolution on strengthening relations between the OSCE PA and the OSCE. The draft resolution on the conflict in Georgia. The draft resolution on the rights of refugees. The draft resolution on reconsolidating European security as a common project. The draft resolution on the security challenges of migration. The draft resolution on the Republic of Moldova. The draft resolution on integrating gender-based analysis and gender mainstreaming in the response to the migrant and refugee crisis. The draft resolution on the 30th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster. The draft resolution on enhanced cooperation and confidence building measures in the Baltic Sea region. The draft resolution on drinking water, fostering cooperation to protect a scarce resource adversely affected by climate change. The draft resolution on natural resource management as a tool for preventing conflicts and environmental migrants. And the draft resolution, the compromise supplementary item, the draft resolution on unrestricted access of members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly attending official OSCE events and other activities.
So thank you. And now the exciting moment of the Standing Committee meeting. So you... Yes, excellent. And I ask that our treasurer, Doris Barnet, she will draw the lots from the box, which items will be placed on the agenda?
No, well, 15.
15. Can you immediately tell?
This is the item on possible contributions of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly to developing effective response to crisis and conflicts. It's number 2. This is the item on the security challenges of migration, number 10. The item on violations of human rights and fundamental freedoms in Crimea, number 1. The item on acting against corruption in the OSCE region to strengthen the rule of law, number 4. The item on the conflict in Georgia, number 7. The item on integrating gender-based analysis and gender mainstreaming in the response to the migrant and refugee crisis, number 12. The item on unrestricted access of members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly attending official OSCE events and other activities, number 19. The item on the Republic of Moldova, number 11.
But they don't have the list of these, do they?
The item on a call for OSCE action to address violence and discrimination, it's number 5. The item on the 30th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster, number 13. Yes, 5 more, I think. I have.
Yeah.
The item on strengthening relations between the OSCE EPA and the OSCE, that's number 6. I have 11, I think now. But yes, do check, do count. The item on enhanced cooperation and confidence building measures in the Baltic Sea region, that's number 16. Does that make... so this is number 13. Yeah. Okay. The item on reconsolidating European security as a common project, it's number 9. The item on the rights of refugees, this is number 8. And finally, the item on law enforcement coordination to prevent child sexual exploitation and trafficking by known sex offenders, number 3.
So, and it means maybe it would be fair also to say that which items will not be on the agenda.
So the 2 items which will not be placed on the agenda are number 17, drinking water, fostering cooperation to protect a scarce resource adversely affected by climate change, and number 18, the draft resolution on natural resource management as a tool for preventing conflicts and environmental migrants.
Okay, unfortunately, this is a situation this time. Thank you very much. And is it necessary to go through the list about the committees they are going in? I suppose there's a distributed list of those committees. Allocation of the whole exercise. Agreed? Accordingly to the list. Okay, thank you very much. It was not too painful. Thanks a lot. Then, please, now we will have very important statement by our Secretary General, Roberto Montella, so that he will give his report about our activities of the OSCE EPA. And Roberto, you have the floor, please. Who's asking?
You're not referring to me as my dear president, I hope. Thank you, Mr. President. I've distributed my written report. It's quite extensive. It presents all the activities of the Secretariat in these last 6 months. So I will not walk you through the entire report. It's been distributed. And I've distributed in advance exactly to give the possibility to all the members to maybe raise questions, advise, and clarifications. But let me start. I will just give a few highlights of my report. Let me start by thanking the Speaker of the Georgian Parliament, David Upashvili, by thanking the Georgian authorities and by thanking the staff of the Georgian Parliament, as well as my colleagues here in the Secretariat who are working on the conference team, for putting together this annual session. I was here in January. I met with the Georgian authorities. There was nothing here. I mean, this was really ground zero. In few months, you've managed to build together this structure, and you have done a great job. So thank you to the authorities, and thank you especially to your staff. Madloba. Today, I conclude my first 6 months since I took office. This was a very intense 6 months. When I started reporting in Vienna the first time, I said that I would have taken an approach like AAA. In the first 6 months, I would have assessed, adapted the situation, and then advance. This was the principle that guided me in these 6 months on two main priorities. I tried to do look at internally at the OSCE, at the Secretariat, and try to do an internal reform, but also an outreach towards our partners outside. The internal reform is detailed in the report, but I just give you a few highlights. We have tried to introduce new staff rules for the staff. All our colleagues now have signed new contracts based on these rules. They are employees of the Assembly, not of the Secretary General. The principle was to keep as much as possible flexibility in the staff, enhance security of the staff, clarify the tasks and responsibilities, and you will see in the report there is an outline of the responsibility. So in one word, what I wanted to do was make the International Secretariat modernized, more professional, and of course more accountable and transparent. In the relation with the external partners, I have reached out immediately to the OSCE. We've had challenges in the past with some institutions of the OSCE. My task here was to try to reach out to the OSCE Secretariat, to the permanent delegations in Vienna, to the ODIHR, to the High Commissioner for National Minorities, and basically to put together all our efforts, all our energies, all our capabilities to focus on what are the real issues that the OSCE needs to tackle. The real issues is not our respective visibilities, the real issues is the problems on the ground. And so if there are issues of migration, terrorism, conflicts, or elections and things that we have to deal with, I think that what is important is that the Parliamentary Assembly works together with other institutions of the OSCE and with other partners, because I've reached out also to the NATO PA, to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, and working together with them to tackle the real issues on the ground. So not in a competitive, let's say, asset, but more like working in a cooperative fashion with our partners. Je ne vais pas dans toutes les activités, vous les voyez ici à des photos de toutes les activités qu'on a fait, que les membres ont fait dans les derniers 6 mois. Je voulais juste dire que toutes ces activités ont été bien présentées dans les News from Copenhagen, notre bulletin. J'aimerais bien seulement remercier tous les membres du Parlement qui ont participé à ces activités. Je le dis toujours, le secrétariat est juste ici pour vous servir, mais le grand patrimoine de l'Assemblée parlementaire, ce sont les membres, ce sont les 323 membres qui ont du temps, qui ont de la crédibilité, de la visibilité pour faire des activités dans l'OSCE. Et nous, on met à disposition de l'organisation ce patrimoine. Donc, le secrétariat est juste un facilitateur des activités de l'Assemblée et de l'organisation, mais c'est vous les protagonistes, c'est vous la force qui nous donne visibilité, qui porte en avant nos activités. Mi permette, Presidente, di dire due parole in italiano. Non ho mai parlato in italiano pubblicamente, ma anche per rispondere alla sollecitazione degli interpreti, e qui ringrazio per il loro lavoro, perché è grazie a loro e ai traduttori che sono già stati qui negli ultimi giorni a preparare i testi. Voglio ringraziare loro perché questi incontri avvengono anche grazie al loro lavoro. Ma non ho mai parlato in italiano, lo faccio anche per esprimere una parola di commiato per il suo lavoro, signor Presidente. Se vuole, così sente quello che dico, è importante. Lei, signor Presidente, ha guidato l'Assemblea negli ultimi 2 anni, che forse sono stati anni abbastanza difficili per la nostra Assemblea. Negli ultimi 25 anni mai c'è stato 2 anni così intensi con la crisi in Ucraina, la crisi migratoria, il terrorismo internazionale e tra l'altro anche un cambio di leadership ai vertici della nostra organizzazione, il segretariato. Devo dire che lei ha guidato la nostra Assemblea con una mano molto ferma, tenendo la barra dritta e portandoci verso un porto sicuro. Quindi voglio ringraziarla per il lavoro che ha fatto, anche perché a volte ha comportato anche elementi emozionali, è inutile nascondercelo. Il passaggio l'anno scorso è stato un passaggio molto difficile. Voglio anche qui fare un saluto al grande lavoro che ha fatto il mio predecessore Spencer Oliver in questo lavoro, però sappiamo che quel passaggio aveva anche dei momenti emozionali, no? E lei è riuscito a guidarci in modo molto fermo, molto dritto, e ci ha portato nella nuova vita dell'Assemblea parlamentare con mano ferma. Di questo la ringrazio. Volevo anche ringraziarla per aver distribuito questo vision paper. È un documento molto importante che invito tutti i membri a leggere e ad analizzare nel dettaglio, perché veramente ci dà degli elementi per come possiamo portare avanti l'Assemblea nei prossimi eventualmente 25 anni e volevo qui anche dire una parola di sostegno al comitato di Lord Bones, che avrà il compito anche non solo di guardare ai cambiamenti dei rules, ma anche di guardare a idee per cambiare un po' l'Assemblea o comunque per fare delle cose nuove nell'Assemblea. Quindi tutte queste idee nuove e il suo documento di vision dovrebbero essere canalizzate nel lavoro del comitato di Lord Bones. This leads me to say a few words also to the upcoming election of officers that we have in our Assembly. I would like to thank all those who have presented their candidature for vice presidents, for committee members and for president. I just wanted to say that of course the International Secretariat will make sure that we guarantee the maximum transparency, the maximum fairness in this election of officers. We know that especially on the issue of the presidential race there are 3 candidates. I would like to thank them personally because they have run a campaign which is extremely nice, extremely fair, extremely friendly between them, and we will ensure that it stays this way. I've invited them all to my office today also to walk them through the procedures to ensure that everybody gets access to the same information at the same time and that the procedures are well known by all the candidates. I say this in Italian, I mean the International Secretariat non è né a destra né a sinistra, in alto diciamo. We are au-dessus de la mêlée, so this is very clear. One more word on the upcoming events. We have a very busy autumn. We will have elections in Belarus, in Russia, in Georgia, in Montenegro, in Moldova, and in the United States. So the new president also will have the challenging task of appointing leadership to all these missions both in the OSCE heads of delegations and in the special coordinators. And of course our next important activity is in Skopje at the end of September, beginning of October for the annual meeting, and here I thank also our friends for helping us putting together that event. I will leave it at that because maybe there are some questions. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Okay.
And I will give the floor to maybe Ambassador to give a few words about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Very briefly, you all get my reports, so you have taken from the reports that the atmosphere in Vienna is not very constructive. There are so many blockages that the OSCE is really not advancing. We have heard criticism during the annual security review conference, which has taken place over the last days, by very long-standing observers of the OSCE that most of the statements that are made in the Permanent Council are usually for home consumption. We do not have a successor for the representative on the freedom of the media. We do have to look for a new High Commissioner for National Minorities, because the mandate was not extended, although it was up for it. So this is very bad. In stark contrast to that, we have a very good atmosphere between the governmental side and the parliamentary side now. This is quite a change from the past. In the past already, we did take a number of steps to enhance cooperation. I just remind you that former presidents have started this cooperation between the committees and so on. All this has taken place, but it was always overshadowed by some suspicion, and there were some obstacles that were made, and the campaign that Roberto has done to more or less recreate or create confidence in us has really borne fruit, and we have now had so many joint events, just to mention very few of them, apart from the traditional fields like trafficking that we have always worked on. This migration committee meeting was a really co-organized meeting of the two committees of the working group. It's called working group in Vienna, and the migration committee of the PA. This is a total novelty. We have never had that. And it's very much so also with this Code of Conduct conference, which was a joint conference in some ways, to which parliamentarians have made a major contribution. And I could go on quoting many more of these things. The problem that comes from it, for me in Vienna, or for my people in Vienna, is that we have much more work to do. It's not only these joint things that we have to organize now, it is also events like the Leinsweiler retreat that we are doing from Vienna, and we have one person less because Roberto moved to Copenhagen. So I would like to use, or misuse if you want, this opportunity to tell you that I very much share the feeling of Doris Barnett that there is a need for secondments, for more secondments to the International Secretariat. Yeah. And if any one of you would want to make an extra contribution by seconding an administrative officer or some assistant to the office in Vienna, it would be most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, both of you, very much about your comprehensive and very interesting focal points in our activities. I was very satisfied with your reports, very informative and politically very, very relevant text in various ways. And also want to underline the last point of your report about our resources. We are suffering to continue at the same level throughout the times, throughout the centuries. So that this is very, very important in the nearest future. So now we go to the discussion, debate, and comments, criticism, whatever, questions from your side to our Secretary General or to our Ambassador, if any. If not, all of us, we are very happy with your reports. Thank you very much indeed. Then we go to item number 6, our activities, and first election observation missions. We now come to the reports of that side from the ad hoc committees and from also special representatives. So we have very, very little time to do it, very limited period for that. And I ask that all of you who are presenting your reports on the issues will very briefly give your reports, meaning 2 or 3 minutes, and then debate after that. And we will start from Kazakhstan, early parliamentary elections, and I ask Marietta Tidei, Special Coordinator and Leader of the Short-Term Observation Mission. You have the floor. Marietta, where are you?
Sì, grazie Presidente. Come lei ha detto, sono stata coordinatrice speciale della missione di monitoraggio elettorale per le elezioni parlamentari che si sono svolte in Kazakistan lo scorso 20 marzo. Con me c'era il collega norvegese Geir Georgen Bekkevold, che probabilmente dopo dirà qualcosa, e abbiamo guidato una delegazione di circa 60 parlamentari che provenivano da 20 paesi. Siamo chiaramente stati assistiti, e per questo voglio ringraziare comunque l'ODIHR che ha svolto un lavoro straordinario, e il capo missione dell'ODIHR era l'ambasciatore Boris Flek della Slovenia. Abbiamo nell'occasione incontrato il ministro degli esteri kazako, ma in generale possiamo dire che comunque le autorità ci hanno consentito di poter svolgere un'osservazione elettorale approfondita senza restrizioni. Per quanto riguarda diciamo invece proprio l'esito, comunque le nostre opinioni su quelle che sono state le elezioni, possiamo dire che le elezioni sono sicuramente state organizzate in maniera efficiente. Come dicevo, non c'è stata alcuna restrizione alla nostra osservazione, però pensiamo che comunque ci siano ancora dei passi da fare, appunto perché questo paese, perché il Kazakistan rispetti in pieno quelli che sono comunque gli standard dell'OSCE per le elezioni. In generale mi sento di dire che comunque sono stati notati dei progressi, i vari partiti hanno comunque avuto accesso anche alle reti televisive, alla comunicazione, però evidentemente comunque il partito del Presidente, il partito di governo ha sicuramente avuto un vantaggio anche di visibilità molto forte. Sicuramente interessante è stato invece l'incontro con la società civile, che ci ha fornito molti spunti di riflessione che poi comunque sono stati contenuti appunto nel nostro report finale. Spero di essere stata sufficiente.
Very good, thank you, and could it be possible that also our friend from Norway could add something, Mr. Bekkevold?
Yes, thank you, President. Just some small remarks from me, because we were hoping to see more progress in the election in Kazakhstan compared to the election in 2012. And even if the election day was effectively organized, we saw some serious procedural errors and other things were observing during voting, counting and tabulation. During voting, observers note indication of ballot box stuffing, a very high number of names added to the voter list on election day, as well as group and proxy voting. I hope that we can see some progress in the time to go, and I hope that the Kazakhstan authorities will receive the report in a constructive way in the future. I think that will be a small remark from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, any comments, any questions? If not, you have the light. You want to have a speech? Please.
Спасибо. Уважаемые коллеги, мы благодарны членам парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ за участие в мониторинговой миссии в ходе парламентских выборов в Казахстане. Мы действительно увидели искреннее желание членов миссии глубоко и всесторонне узнать состояние выборного процесса в нашей стране. Надо сказать, что было много встреч и посещений, и мы за это очень благодарны. Могу сказать, что процесс совершенствования законов, которые определяют выборы в нашей стране, продолжается. Мы знаем свои проблемы, и, конечно, только нам решать эти вопросы, этой проблемы. Поэтому все замечания и предложения членов миссии будут полезны в нашей деятельности. И хотелось бы просто сказать всем спасибо еще раз. Спасибо.
Thank you. This was very valuable contribution to our activities. Thank you. If not any more, so we move forward. And before that, I want to state that that it is very, very vital activity of the Parliamentary Assembly to be present, to make our missions of the parliamentary elections, and we have very active period in front of us throughout the next autumn. This is one of the most recognized profiles of the PA activities, and I ask you to show your strong commitment to this activity throughout the autumn, the fall period. We will have 5 or 6 elections to go to make the missions in there, and I encourage you to be very active and give the clear signal from our side to be involved in this fundamental character of the democratic system in every single country. So thank you very much indeed. And then some ad hoc committees and special representatives, and the first one ad hoc committee is migration. Mr. Filippo Lombardi, you are in there, please. Sorry. Belarusia wants to speak before that report. Please, Belarusia.
Да, спасибо, уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые коллеги. Я просто не знал, что уже больше доклада по выборам, по результатам выборов не будет, поэтому прошу извинить. Я хотел бы сказать несколько слов. 11 сентября этого года, в подтверждение того, что вы сказали, у нас состоятся выборы депутатов Палаты представителей Национального собрания Республики Беларусь 6-го созыва. Подготовка к предстоящим выборам, хочу проинформировать своих коллег, осуществляется в полном соответствии с национальным законодательством и международными обязательствами Республики Беларусь. В подтверждение заинтересованности Республики Беларусь в проведении максимально открытых и прозрачных выборов международные наблюдатели по линии Парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ, БДИПЧ ОБСЕ, ПАСЕ, МПА СНГ и других организаций уже приглашены в Беларусь без каких-либо ограничений. Мы рассчитываем на объективную оценку избирательной кампании у нас со стороны международных наблюдателей, для работы которых будут созданы все необходимые условия, а также на продолжение конструктивного диалога и взаимодействия после их проведения. Благодарю вас.
Now, thank you very much. And now we go to the next report concerning migration. And Lombardi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear colleagues and dear friends. 2015 has been a record year for several things, but unfortunately, according to the figures of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, also for what concerned the number of people who were forcibly displaced in the world. The highest number ever. Statistically, there were 24 people displaced per minute in the year 2015. And these numbers are still on the rise and will present a challenge to us this year and in the upcoming years. That's the reason why we believe OSCE cannot stay at the outside this question and just observe it from far away. We need to be in the middle of the discussion. We need to offer the services of an international organization joining 57 member states and having at its border a number of states where the problem also originates. So we have to be very active. This was a decision taken by our Bureau by establishing this ad hoc working group of the Parliamentary Assembly, but it was also the decision of the German chairmanship of OSCE this year by creating an informal working group focusing on migration and refugee flows. So our ambassadors, the representative delegations of our member states are meeting in Vienna. They had already 7 hearings on the issue, and it is important to note that our activity as Parliamentary Assembly has to be strong, very intensively coordinated with the one of our ministers and of the German chairmanship through this informal working group which was established. It is important that the Parliamentary Assembly is present and that the voice of the parliaments is heard and that the parliaments are used as a way of carrying to our member states, to the public opinion of our countries, a number of ideas, of proposals which are of interest for everybody, but it is also important that we do it in strict cooperation with our governments and our delegations in Vienna. Our ad hoc committee just started its work. Really, to be frank, the first plenary meeting of the ad hoc committee will be next Sunday here in Tbilisi. So it is for me a bit difficult to report about a committee which will start in 2 days' time its work. Therefore, I would ask you, Mr. President, to allow then a bit longer report in the final plenary meeting of this Tbilisi session, so that we can also report on what has been decided by the working group. So far, there are a number of ideas on the table. We had 1 field mission already in Calais and Dunkirk, and we had 1 delegation led by our Vice President Vakis Voridis from Greece, who attended precisely this informal working group in Vienna with the ambassadors and delegations. The proposals we would like at this stage to submit for the priorities on which we want to work are 5. Number 1, protection of refugees and vulnerable migrants. Number 2, combating organized crime in trafficking in human beings and smuggling of migrants. Number 3, responsible human rights-based and harmonized border management. We can't imagine that every country is doing what seems good for itself, but not regarding what's happening in the neighboring countries, so coordinate harmonized management. Number 4, successful integration, and number 5, solidarity and partnerships. And of course, we have to do this within the OSCE member states and also outside. We have to look sometimes to the south of our member states and try to find there the necessary contacts in order to deal with this dramatic situation. We believe it is not only important to have field missions. We will do some. There are projects already and invitations in Italy, in Greece, in Turkey, in other countries as well. So field missions are okay. But I would like to suggest to my committee on Sunday that we don't fall into activism by a multiplication of field missions, because other parliamentary organizations are also proceeding with a number of field missions, and at the end it is sometimes worrying if too many field missions come to some places and nothing comes out. So we have to do a certain work among ourselves to propose a number of ideas, of suggestions which are valuable for our member states, and we will do this work, I hope, inside this ad hoc committee. As well as we would like to interact with all other institutions which are at the European, at the international level, in the United Nations system, dealing with the migration crisis. Sometimes we have the impression there are a lot of people talking about these issues, trying to do something, but there is no coordination. So if our ad hoc working group can, within 1 year, achieve not only some field missions, but also a number of coordinating activities with the other bodies dealing with this issue, we will be able to present you a report in 1 year time in Minsk in July 17, with intermediate reports, of course, in Skopje and Vienna. But I think this is the roadmap I would like to propose to my committee on Sunday. If you allow me, I will report more on details in the final plenary meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lobardi. Thank you very much about of your report, and we are very, very sure that this will be in the focus in the European politics as far as we can foresee anything in our political development, so that this is gone business. Thank you very much. And now we go further, and I also remind that I ask you to be very clear and very briefly in your reports. Moldova, parliamentary team on Moldova, and Ms. Arta Dade, you are in there. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, I'm happy to report that since our last meeting in Vienna, the parliamentary team on Moldova has relaunched its activities and has been able to constructively engage with relevant stakeholders in Moldova. We welcome the chairmanship in office's active effort to revitalize the Transnistrian settlement process. The active approach, spearheaded by the Special Representative for the Transnistrian settlement process, Ambassador Claude, and the OSCE mission to Moldova led by Ambassador Scanlan, has largely contributed to unifying the position of mediators and observers in the settlement process. This should be commended, in particular in light of Moldova's divisive geopolitical environment. The international community's collective commitment led to 2nd and 3rd June to the resumption of format 5+2 talks after a 2-year stopping and the signature of a protocol detailing steps to be taken to solve a number of concrete issues. The sides have so far followed through on their commitments and reached agreements in a number of areas to improve the lives of citizens on both sides of Dniester River. These small success stories are essential to demonstrate progress and a desire to resolve outstanding issues. Our parliamentary team followed up on this positive step by taking part in very timely visit to Moldova in the middle of June to encourage greater political support for the settlement talks. This was the first visit to Moldova by our parliamentary team in over 4 years, and I thank our colleagues Marita Tide from Italy and Thierry Mariani from France for their active participation. Other members of the parliamentary team expressed great interest for the visit, but could not participate due to other commitments. I welcome this enthusiasm and would like to encourage our interlocutors in Moldova to utilize our group's resources as much as possible. In Moldova, we met with Deputy Chairperson of Parliament, we met Deputy Prime Minister for Reintegration, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, we met the delegation of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly led by our dear colleague Sergei Sirbu. We also met the Governor of Autonomous Territorial Unit of Gagauzia, Irina Vla, and exchanged views with civil society, representatives of diplomatic corps, the Ambassador of Italy, the Ambassador of Germany, France, Sweden, OSCE, and Council of Europe. Delegation traveled to Tiraspol to hold talks with Transnistrian leader, chief negotiator, and the chairman of the legislator body there. These meetings helped us gather first-hand information on the situation in Moldova and on the current dynamics of Transnistrian settlement process. We also explored possible opportunities for cooperation with representatives from Chisinau and Tiraspol through the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. In our meetings, we underlined that finding the political will to overcome differences is the key to ensuring a long-term and comprehensive settlement. In this respect, our delegation pointed out that legislative deputies are essential in building political support for any solution to the Transnistrian situation. This visit strengthened our conviction that OSCE Parliamentary Assembly can play an important role in assisting the settlement process. Our combined experience as national legislators, and for some of us also as former government ministers, offers a unique perspective and expertise. Seminars and workshops organized with our contribution can be of mutual interest in a number of practical areas and a good opportunity to bring together relevant representatives both sides of Dniester. I therefore encourage every delegation in our Parliamentary Assembly, and particularly the German chairmanship, as well as the forthcoming Austrian chairmanship, to contribute to our work and propose ways that OSCE Parliamentary Assembly can supplement the efforts of the international community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Dade, about your excellent report. Thank you very much indeed. Any comments? If no, we move forward. We go to our Kristiina Mutonen to hear her report on Central and Eastern Asia. Kristiina, where are you?
Here I am.
Okay, great.
Thank
Please.
you. Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, it has been an honor for me to represent the Parliamentary Assembly as its special representative on Central and Eastern Asia. The importance of this region for the OSCE and the wider world is obvious, not only from the security perspective, but also from the opportunity it offers. The OSCE has some of its biggest missions in the region, and they are doing exceptional work, hand in hand with national governments, on issues such as border controls, police reform, green growth, human rights, and many more. I have structured my activities along two key vectors. Firstly, in line with the new vision of our Assembly, which foresees closer cooperation with the OSCE Secretariat, participating states and independent institutions. In this sense, I had regular meetings in Vienna with General Secretary Sanier, with the CPC Director Besko, and with the heads of the permanent missions of the Central Asian delegations to the OSCE. Secondly, I have worked extensively in the region. I took part in the election observation mission in Kazakhstan in March, acting as the coordinator of the group of observers deployed in Almaty. And furthermore, I visited Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan in late May and early June, together with our Secretary General, Roberto Montella. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank the delegations from the hosting countries for their hospitality and for their openness to discuss all the topics which arise. These visits proved to be extremely useful, and I would say they really were successful. There is, by the way, an extensively written report outside and on the homepage. My visit in Kazakhstan, the agenda included official meetings with the chairman of the Senate, with the chairman of the parliament, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, with the delegations of the OSCE, PA, with the mayor of Almaty. I had the possibility to discuss the regional situation and current issues of importance to Kazakhstan, and such, I must admit, I have really been particularly inspired by the commitment of Kazakhstan to transform what we call the rhetoric of the OSCE as a bridge between the transatlantic and trans-Asian spaces into reality. So Kazakhstan functioning as a bridge was could very well be seen. The program also contained a briefing at the OSCE program office in Astana, and the focus is now on fewer but better funded projects and activities. And additional, of course, there was also a meeting with civil society organizations. With them I discussed the reasons for and the consequences of the protests that had been there and the post-electoral situation. Furthermore, on the 31st of May, in Astana upon the invitation of our colleague Tokayev. I myself, Roberto Montella and 6 other prominent members of the OSCE PA made keynote speeches at the international conference Religions Against Terrorism, and this conference brought together not only religious representatives but also parliamentarians from all over the world, and it concluded with a very interesting joint declaration working together for global peace and security. In the visit to Kazakhstan, I also had very important meetings with the Speaker of Parliament, Minister of Foreign Affairs, with members of our PA, with mayors from that region. And I also had a briefing at the OSCE Center in Bishkek, and I gave a lecture at the OSCE Academy. What is important also for our delegation is not only that we discuss the regional situation, but that the proposal to host our 2018 autumn meeting in Kyrgyzstan was met favorably. So probably the meeting in autumn 2018 will be in Kyrgyzstan, and thank you for that. Just a word to the flagship project for Kyrgyzstan, which is the OSCE Academy. I was very impressed by the work which was done there and by the knowledge and by the enthusiasm of the young people working there and studying there, the young people who are possibly the future leaders of the region. So this was very interesting and has to be supported. Just short to the future, I found out in the discussion with with Secretariat members in Vienna 5 key steps. So one is we need a regional platform for cooperation, something that has to be what we really need to do, and what was requested was our work, our parliamentary diplomacy, because we can, as parliament, we can do much more than sometimes on the governmental side. So we need this parliamentary diplomacy, we need inter-regional cooperation. I very much regret that Uzbekistan is the only country that doesn't take part in these meetings, so we have to work on that together with the Conflict Prevention Center and the OSCE project coordinator in Uzbekistan. The incoming Austrian chairmanship, I'm in very close contact with them, put forward the subject of engagement with the regional youth as one of its priorities, and I think working with the young people is very important also as a soft security issue. And we have to go further, we have to look across our borders, working together with like-minded organizations like the International Red Cross, IPU, UN, but also with Shanghai Cooperation Organization, for example, and the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Dear colleagues, these have been my activities in the last 3 months as our special representative. As you all know, I'm running now as a candidate for the presidency, and I would like to underline and reassure you that I'm intending to follow up these key points we found out, whether as your special representative or as your president. Thank you for attention.
Thank you. Very useful information from the region we don't know too well. So thank you very much, Christine. But we have to move forward immediately because reports are so long and we don't have too much time. So Special Representative of South Caucasus, Christian Vigenin. Where are you, Christian?
Thank you, President.
Yes, please.
Allow me first to thank you for everything you've done, for your commitment and achievements in the past 2 years, and of course for the honor to be appointed as Special Representative on South Caucasus. I'm not going into the details. Please read the report that you have, because what I'm going to say now is rather complementary to what is in the report. I would like to mention that the military confrontation in April has created a momentum which must be used to achieve a comprehensive solution of the conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh. The meetings of the presidents in May and in June give hope that political will exists. Situation allows for more active involvement of the parliamentary dimension in general and OSCE-PA more specifically, and that's what I'm doing. This will be possible only if we have the constructive commitment of both delegations of Armenia and Azerbaijan. We have that so far, and I'd like to thank them for their cooperation. Together, we should gradually replace the political fights with political cooperation on the big common goal, peace and security. We need a concerted effort of the different players in the region. I discovered that the level of exchange is low and should be improved. That is my message to all of them that I meet and that I have met in the past months. And I'm trying to give positive example by sharing my assessments and ideas with them. That is particularly important when it comes to the different arms of OSCE. And there should be nothing more important, I believe, for anybody in the OSCE system than the annual session of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. This is a matter of respect and recognition of the role of the only OSCE body that has the legitimacy of the elected members. I mention this in relation to the fact that a side event that we have planned had to be cancelled. A bit more is in the written report. I have focused my report and the presentation on Nagorno-Karabakh, but in my work I do not underestimate the other issues that fall into the OSCE area of responsibilities, both in Armenia and Azerbaijan. In my work I pay a lot of attention to Georgia too. However, I would only mention now the challenge number one domestically. These are the upcoming parliamentary elections. And on the international level, I'll come up with concrete proposals to the Parliamentary Assembly for its involvement in finding solutions on the challenges of Georgia internationally only after the elections that will take place in Georgia and in the Russian Federation. Thank you for your attention.
And now, thank you, Christian, thank you very much. And then the first floor, Mrs. Muradova.
Уважаемый председатель, спасибо за предоставленное слово. Я воспользуюсь советом господина спецпредставителя о том, что нужно больше услышать. Вопрос поиска универсальных методов разрешения карабахской проблемы остается проблемой номер один для дипломатии, поскольку они, в том числе Минская группа ОБСЕ, считают, что конфликт должен быть решен в результате мирных переговоров, значит, мы должны найти какую-то исключительно особенную методику для этого. Но, к сожалению, до сих пор не было найдено такого метода разрешения. Азербайджан готов к компромиссам и не раз озвучивал возможные конкретные шаги. Первым из них является освобождение хотя бы поэтапно оккупированных территорий Азербайджана для того, чтобы добиться результативности переговоров и восстановления доверия. Как мы знаем, армянская сторона отвергает такой подход. Но из-за этого долгий, бесконечный переговорный процесс нас ни к чему не привел. Я говорю об этом не ради того, чтобы обвинить армянскую сторону, потому что все эти годы, сколько существует конфликт, мы в основном занимались только тем, что старались выглядеть в хорошем свете, обвиняя друг друга. А дипломатов и ответственных за переговоры лиц это как бы устраивало, потому что было относительное спокойствие на линии соприкосновения, и можно было затягивать переговоры. А то, что там люди погибают, экономика не развивается, замедляются демократические процессы, формируется целое поколение ненавидящих друг друга людей, никого сильно не беспокоило. В результате получили то, что получили. Апрельские события заставили всех нас задуматься о том, что сегодняшний статус-кво никого не устраивает, и надо его менять. Ну как? Желая этого и не делая ничего реального, сможем ли мы добиться желаемого результата? Достижение результатов прекращения огня сегодня дает нам возможность вести субстантивные переговоры и превратить эту возможность в ощутимое продвижение. Но это превратится в реальный результат только в том случае, если мы захотим вести это дело для разрешения самого конфликта, а не будем заниматься только лишь его элементами. Хотя я не хочу принизить значение этих элементов, считая их предметом обсуждения на переговорах для того, чтобы сдвинуть дело с мертвой точки. У нас появились определенные надежды в связи с активизировавшимся процессом переговоров. За короткий срок состоялись 2 встречи президентов. Идет подготовка к следующей. Стороны отмечают положительные сдвиги в переговорах. Хотелось бы особо отметить активность спецпредставителя Ассамблеи по Южному Кавказу господина Вигенина, который уже дважды с начала этого года совершил визиты в регион, так же, кстати, как и новый генеральный секретарь Роберто Монтелло. По результатам этих визитов мы ожидали проведения здесь, в Грузии, отдельного мероприятия с участием сопредседателя Минской группы ОБСЕ. К сожалению, эту идею реализовать нам не удалось. Проведенные во время недавнего визита Вигенина в Баку встречи, в том числе на высоком уровне, указывают на большую значимость, придаваемую нами деятельности по оживлению механизмов организации, направленных на разрешение затяжных конфликтов. Выдвинутая спецпредставителем инициатива по проведению встреч парламентских делегаций сторон может стать началом диалога между нами хотя бы здесь. Это бы соответствовало духу нынешнего переговорного процесса. А поддержанная на днях действующим председателем ОБСЕ господином Штайнмайером во время его встречи с азербайджанской общиной Нагорного Карабаха в Баку, наша идея по контактам между общинами Нагорного Карабаха внесла бы вклад в формирование духа доверия. Остается пожелать успеха господину Вигенину в его начинаниях и выразить надежду на то, что он и в дальнейшем будет оперативно реагировать на происходящие в регионе события путем своевременных заявлений для широкой общественности. Надеемся, что подобная активность со стороны парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ в столь решающий момент может внести вклад в объединение усилий институтов ОБСЕ в этом направлении. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much. And of course, the next speaker is from Armenia. Yes, please.
Уважаемый господин президент, прежде всего хочу выразить свое удовлетворение, что азербайджанский коллега госпожа Мурадова наконец-то здесь призналась, что в Азербайджане воспитывают молодежь в духе ненависти к Армении. К сожалению, это запоздалое признание. Приведу свежайший пример. В то время как по национальному телевидению Армении самое что ни на есть подходящее время показывают сюжет, героем которого является азербайджанец по национальности и по фамилии Алиев, который является директором школы в Армении, хвалят его за то, что он сеет доброту и мир. В это же самое время на электронном портале Государственного университета Баку ставят фотографии с восторженными надписями, где отрубленную голову армянского военнослужащего держит в руках герой, которого героизировал президент Азербайджана, наградив его грамотой. Но разговор не об этом. Я хочу выразить глубочайшую благодарность сопредседателям Минской группы ОБСЕ, которые в Вене сумели таки прийти к значительному, существенному шагу по направлению к миру и выступили с соответствующим заявлением. Лично министр иностранных дел России Лавров, госсекретарь США Керри, министр Франции Эро, а также председательствующий в ОБСЕ Франк-Вальтер Штайнмайер. Я хочу выразить особую благодарность нашей уважаемой Дорис Барнетт, которая в Лансвайлере организовала очень полезную и нужную встречу, на которой как будто бы выработались пути дальнейшего сближения наших позиций. Ну и, конечно, хочу выразить благодарность Кристиану Вигенину, который старался всемерно объективно подойти к вопросу и, по-моему, вышел на правильный путь. Сейчас очень важно и очень существенно, чтобы все те положительные наметки, которые были, соответственно, достигнуты в Вене, совершенно недавно в Санкт-Петербурге под председательством президента России Владимира Путина, которые будут продолжены в Париже, чтобы мы не навредили. И, пользуясь случаем, хочу выразить благодарность нашему докладчику, госпоже Седерфельд, которая, казалось бы, органически продолжила весь тот положительный настрой, который был достигнут как в Вене, так и в Санкт-Петербурге. И сейчас в ходе обсуждения данного документа нам надо воспользоваться, значит, подсказкой клятвой Гиппократа «не навредить», то есть сделать все то, что продвигает нас к миру, что продвигает нас к сотрудничеству, а не переписывать заново весь тот путь, который пройден был нами. Уважаемый председатель, господин Канерва, я 12 лет с небольшим перерывом являюсь членом парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ. И искренне хочу поблагодарить вас, генерального секретаря, всю вашу команду за то, что вы сумели такие даже самые острые, казалось бы, несопоставимые вещи выносить на обсуждение в обстановке доброжелательности, в обстановке всемирного желания прийти к согласию. Большое вам спасибо.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other speakers on this item? No. Thank you. Now, Mr. Batelli, from the representative on South East Europe, is not here, nor is Mr. Cardin on the Special Representative of the Anti-Semitism, Racism and Intolerance. And so I turn now to Mr. Christopher Smith, our Special Representative on Human Trafficking Issues. Representative Christopher Smith.
Thank you very, very much. And I know he stepped out of the room, but I would like to especially thank, since this is his last standing committee, President Canervas for his exemplary leadership, his vision, and commitment to the OSCE-PA. He has done a tremendous job, and our delegation wants to thank him, and I'm sure all delegations would like to thank him as well. Very briefly, I have served as special rep for trafficking issues since 2004. And I'd encourage my colleagues to read my report. It's 18 pages long. It's extensive. It speaks to the meetings that I've had over the last year with presidents, prime ministers, foreign ministers, especially with parliamentarians and NGOs that are committed to combating modern-day slavery. That is all outlined in the report. The report underscores unmet needs and challenges in this struggle to end modern-day slavery. As we all know, it's an extremely cruel $150 billion industry. There's also emphasis on trends that are being employed by the nefarious network of traffickers and ways to defeat them. And it highlights best practices for new legislation that each of us can take back to our respective parliaments and congresses and look to enact to combat human trafficking. I would underscore that the supplemental that I am offering, thankfully it made the cut a few minutes ago, on law enforcement efforts to combat child sex tourism, which is exploding all over the world, and no country is immune. This past February, the United States Congress enacted and the President signed a law that I have been working on for 8 years as author called the International Megan's Law. That legislation will notice convicted countries who are traveling of convicted child predators, pedophiles, before they leave, so that countries to whom they are traveling will have the ability to assess the risk to their own children. That is now in effect in the United States, and again, the supplemental seeks to encourage others to enact similar legislation. Finally, yesterday, the United States Department of State released its annual Trafficking and Persons Report of some 188 countries, with an emphasis on efforts made to prevent, protect, and prosecute. That tip report comes pursuant to a law that I wrote in 2000, known as the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. We will have copies of it later on today, if anyone would like to see it. It's about a 200-page, very, very thorough analysis with recommendations for every country, including my own, in terms of what we can do as we continue this struggle to end this horrific crime against vulnerable people, especially women and children. And again, I thank you, and I encourage members to read the report.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other speakers on this item? Thank you. In that case, are there any other special representatives in the at the meeting who would like to speak, particularly Mr. Voisin or Mr. Kovalev or Mr. Sanchez Amor? Nope.
Just one.
Only Norway.
Yeah.
I'm
Mr.
sorry?
Elvestuen, I'm the Special Representative of Arctic issues.
Yes, please, you have the floor. Carry on.
Yes. Thank you very much. First of all, I would say it's a great honor to have been appointed as the OSCE PA Special Representative on Arctic issues. As Special Representative, I try to attend the meetings and conferences relevant to my mandate. And I will especially focus on, and I try to focus on cooperation with the Arctic Council that celebrates its 20th anniversary this year, and also with the Arctic Parliamentary Committee that has had their meeting recently in Ulan-Ude in Russia. The Arctic Parliamentary Committee, they put their focus on Arctic cooperation in light of the COP21 in Paris, inhabitants in a developing Arctic, and new possibilities for the Arctic. These are also the three issues that I put my main focus on. In Vienna this winter, I could report that in January of this year was the warmest month ever recorded in the Arctic, and the extent of sea ice the lowest on record since the first measurements in 1978. And there's no doubt that in the Arctic the greatest force for change is global warming. The temperature in the Arctic increases twice as fast as the global average. This has dramatic effects for the region. The glaciers are melting and changing the landscape. The sea ice in the Arctic Ocean is melting and new ocean is opening up to fishing, shipping, tourism and more. The tundra is thawing and the ground is disappearing under roads and houses, and the Greenlandic ice cap is melting faster and the sea level will rise. And the change in the Arctic is influencing weather patterns globally. There's no doubt for parliamentarians in the OSCE area, the most important thing they can do for the Arctic and stability in the Arctic is to follow up the Paris Agreement, as the countries have committed themselves to, and also to increase their work on mitigating global warming. I was fortunate this spring to visit Svalbard in the north of Norway. There I had meetings with the General Consular of in Barentsburg of Russia. I also had meetings in Ny-Ålesund, that's close to 79 degrees north, and meetings with different research organizations and different researchers that are there. There are representatives from more than 20 countries doing research in Ny-Ålesund, mainly on global warming and the effects of global warming. At Svalbard, for the last 66 months, they have had an average temperature that is above normal. That is since 2010. And if you look at the situation, if you go and see for yourself at Svalbard, back in the 70s, boats could not travel into the fjords to the west of the archipelago until late June. For the last 10 years in the fjords of Svalbard, there has been no sea ice. So the change is really dramatic. Apart from that, I try to focus on the people living in the Arctic. There are 4 million people, and especially this is a great challenge for the indigenous people living there. That is reindeer herders that I myself has met in the northern part of Norway that are seeing challenges. But I will also say that within the Arctic Council, the indigenous people of the Arctic have been given their right to a place as permanent participants. And the Arctic Council is definitely working as a cooperative area where also indigenous peoples have their strong voice. At the end, I will emphasize the new possibilities in the Arctic. With global warming, it also gives a stronger interest for economic development in the Arctic, and it's important that this is done in a manner that is environmentally sound, and also that is done in a way that does not increase tension in the area. Because there's no doubt that the Arctic is an area of the world today where we have a good cooperation, especially with the Arctic Council. And it is a good cooperation, even though it is an area also with a considerable presence of military capacities. With that, I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And does any other representative wish to take the floor on that particular issue, report of the Special Representative on the Arctic? No, in that case, I turn to Mr. Klimke, the Special Representative in connection with the Baltic state. Mr. Klimke, you have the floor.
Ja, danke sehr, Herr Vorsitzender, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Wir gehen etwas tiefer von der Arktis in die Ostsee. Als Ostseebeauftragter habe ich auch meinen schriftlichen Bericht vorgelegt, auf den ich ausdrücklich verweisen möchte. Ich möchte auch verweisen auf unser Supplementary Item, auf unseren Antrag, den wir vorhin kurz vorgestellt bekommen hatten, den wir dann auch in den nächsten Tagen beraten werden, der auch wesentliche Fakten zur Problematik der Ostsee beinhaltet. Ich habe in den vergangenen Monaten Besuche gemacht, intensive Besuche gemacht, zum Beispiel in Finnland, war in Riga mit den baltischen Staaten zusammen und habe dort die aktuellen Fragen diskutiert und werde im nächsten Monat Russland, Polen und weitere Länder wie Schweden besuchen, um dort auch vor Ort nicht nur mit den Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus den parlamentarischen Gremien, sondern auch mit den Vertretern von NGOs über alle die Fragen zu sprechen, die im Zusammenhang mit der Ostsee relevant sind. Ich bin mit den Vertretern auch anderer Organisationen, anderer parlamentarischer Organisationen wie der Ostsee-Parlamentarierkonferenz oder dem Ostseerat zusammengetroffen, und wir haben auch einen intensiveren Austausch gerade mit der OSZE in Zukunft über die gemeinsamen Fragen der Ostseeproblematik besprochen. Außerdem konnte ich den Vorsitz der OSZE durch Deutschland in Berlin nutzen, um an einer Vielzahl von Veranstaltungen aktiv teilzunehmen, die gerade auch die Themen der Ostsee aufbereitet haben. Und ich war auch zu einer intensiven Konferenz, zu der ich eingeladen hatte, in einem sehr nachhaltigen Gedankenaustausch mit den Botschaftern der Ostseestaaten in Berlin zusammen. Lassen Sie mich auf 3 Punkte kurz hinweisen, die aus unserer Sicht sehr, sehr wichtig sind und die immer wieder eine Rolle spielten. Das ist einmal gerade im Zusammenhang mit den sage mal etwas neutral, Schiffs- und Flugzeugbewegungen unterschiedlicher Art und unterschiedlicher Gefährlichkeit, ein Konfliktmonitoring in der Ostsee, das dafür sorgen sollte, dass wir bei konkreten sicherheitsrelevanten Ereignissen schneller und effizienter reagieren können. Dabei gilt es vor allen Dingen, multilaterale Gesprächsformate zu schaffen, Waffenstillstände umzusetzen und vertrauensbildende Maßnahmen zu etablieren. Gerade in den letzten Monaten ist das für die Ostsee als ein immer sinnvolleres und notwendigeres Moment dargestellt worden, dass als eine multilaterale Monitoringstelle die sicherheitsrelevanten Vorfälle in der Ostsee evaluieren kann. Ein zweiter Punkt in diesem Zusammenhang ist der Jugendaustausch, den sich auch gerade der Deutschland als OSZE-Vorsitz in diesem Jahr als ein wesentliches Thema definiert hat. Hier geht es um den Langzeitaustausch von Schul- und Universitätspartnerschaften, um das Miteinander in der Ostsee der künftigen Generation zu stärken und vor allen Dingen in der Ostseeregion auch das zu tun, was die Vizeaußenminister der Ostseeregion auf ihrer Tagung am 8. Juni in Warschau beschlossen haben, nämlich die Bedeutung des Jugendaustausches zu intensivieren, nicht nur durch einen verbalen Akt sozusagen oder wie man etwas salopp sagen könnte, durch eine Sprechblase, sondern vor allen Dingen auch durch finanzielle Mittel. Und ein dritter Punkt in diesem Zusammenhang, den ich ansprechen möchte, ist die Bildung einer Ostseegruppe in der Parlamentarischen Versammlung der OSZE. Auch das wollen wir angehen, um eine bessere Gelegenheit für einen Austausch, für Gespräche mit internationalen Organisationen zu haben und vor allen Dingen auch die Beziehung zur Ostsee-Parlamentarierkonferenz und zum Ostseerat zu vertiefen. Letzter Punkt, ökologische Fragen, ganz, ganz wichtig in diesem Zusammenhang. Die Ostsee als ein fast Binnenmeer mit geringen Wassertiefen und ökologisch sensiblen Lebensräumen braucht hier auch sehr viel mehr Sensibilität. Auch das ist eine Aufgabe, der sich die OSZE, Parlamentarische Versammlung der OSZE, stärker widmen sollte. Ja, das sind vielleicht im Wesentlichen die Punkte in kurzer Form, die ich ansprechen möchte. Herzlichen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Klimper. Any members wish to make a contribution on that item? No, in which case I now give the floor to Kent Hutchstead to speak regarding the ad hoc committee on Belarus. Mr. Hutchstead. Yep. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to share a few words about this ad hoc group on Belarus. I first of all want to thank you for being appointed the chairman of the ad hoc group on Belarus in May this year. And I look forward to work on this matter intensively the coming period of time. We have, as a starter, established a good working relation with the Belarusian authorities. Also, the coming work of the ad hoc group have been well received by human rights groups and opposition in Belarus. So I think we are off for some interesting and constructive work together in the coming year. Next step will be appointing the additional members in the ad hoc group, and that is something that we are working on this very week when we are talking to colleagues that potentially could be members of the working group. We are also planning for a working visit to Belarus, and we are in dialogue with various partners on the Belarusian side, as well as Belarusian authorities. And this is being prepared. Finally, for the coming year, there will be two important events taking place in Belarus, of course, relating to us in the Parliamentary Assembly. One will be the parliamentary elections in September this year. And of course, I would like to encourage as many of you as possible to join in as election observers in that election. That will also be an opportunity to see if there's been any progress coming from the last year's presidential election in Belarus. We, of course, both expect and hope that so will be the case. Second thing will be the next summer that Belarus will host the summer session for the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. So a lot of things will happen the coming year, and I can assure you that this ad hoc group on Belarus will not just be a talking group. I hope we will work constructively with Belarusian side, and we will be able to present some concrete steps forward and some progress concerning all the various matters that has been of concern to us in Belarus. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kent. Does anybody wish to make a contribution? Any comments, questions? Right, thank you very much. Now, the only other special representative that I have not called is Mrs. Heidi Fry, the special representative on gender issues, who, of course, reports directly to the plenary session. So, may we move on then, please, to item 7, information on the meetings, on the coming meetings of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, item 7.1 is the autumn meeting in Skopje, Macedonia, the 29th of September to the 2nd of October. And so may I give the floor to Miss Renata Deskoska.
It's Vladimir.
I beg your pardon? There you are, please. Yeah. You have the floor, sir. Apologize.
No
you are
problem.
not Miss Renata Deskoska. Sorry.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, dear members of the Standing Committee, dear colleagues, I would like to inform you to confirm that the Parliament of Macedonia, the Assembly of Macedonia, is going to host the next autumn meeting of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly that will take place from September 29th, so from September 29th to 2nd of October in Skopje, the capital of Macedonia. The theme of this year's parliamentary conference is strengthening confidence building measures and good governance in the OSCE region. So it's a good topic. Let's bring our goodwill. Let's come to Skopje, let's participate, and let's have a good event. Of course, there'll be a cultural program. The hotels are all in the walking distance. So the event itself is going to be in the Holiday Inn Hotel. Many of you are familiar with the hotel. It's in the downtown Skopje, in the center. But all of the other hotels are in a walking distance, like Marriott, like Best Western, like Ibis, and other places are also available. Also, as the Secretary General Roberto Montella already informed you earlier today, the preparations of the OSCE PA autumn meeting are proceeding very well. So, on behalf of the Speaker of the Parliament, Mr. Trajko Veljanovski, and also all the parliamentarians, we are glad that we're going to be able to host this event. It's the largest parliamentary international event in the Macedonian parliamentary history in the last 26 years. So we hope that most of you or all of you are going to be able to come. So we'll have a good event. End of September, beginning of October, couple of days in Skopje. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for that information. And I see that you have a very informative stand outside, which I'm sure we will all want to visit and look forward to visiting you, visiting Macedonia in the autumn. Item 7.2, the winter meeting is in Austria, in Vienna, on the 23rd to the 24th of February. As every member knows, the winter meeting is always in Vienna, and we are particularly grateful to the Austrian Parliament for their hospitality and, as always, excellent arrangements for that winter meeting. Item 7.3 is the 27th annual meeting, which has already been referred to in Kent Halstead's report, in Minsk on the 5th to the 9th of July. And can I ask Mr. Viktor Gominski from Belarus if he would like to say something? I can't see. Thank you very much. Mr. Gominski.
Да, большое спасибо, уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые коллеги. Прежде всего, хочу выразить признательность всем членам Бюро парламентской ассамблеи за высокое доверие, которое они оказали белорусской стороне приняв решение о проведении 26-й ежегодной сессии нашей Ассамблеи в городе Минске в следующем году. В последние годы мы накопили достаточный опыт проведения международных мероприятий высокого уровня. В 2014 году успешно организовали и провели чемпионат мира по хоккею. В 2015 принимали руководителей стран Нормандской четверки, Германии, Франции, Украины и России. На регулярной основе в Минске проходят переговоры трехсторонней контактной группы по урегулированию украинского кризиса. В мае этого года Минск посетила передовая группа Международного секретариата Парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ, в которую вошли заместители генерального секретаря Густаво Паярис, Семен Захаев и руководитель отдела организации сессий Адиль Вилардж. Хочу проинформировать вас, что после ознакомления с нашей столицей они дали высокую оценку возможностей белорусской стороны к организации сессии. Хочу заверить вас, уважаемые коллеги, что мы намерены со всей серьезностью и ответственностью подойти к подготовке и проведению следующей ежегодной сессии и сделаем все, чтобы обеспечить необходимые условия в соответствии с требованиями Ассамблеи, предъявляемых к таким мероприятиям. Информирую, что с этой целью уже сейчас, во время проведения этой ежегодной сессии, здесь находится рабочая группа парламента Беларуси во главе с начальником секретариата Палаты представителей госпожой Юркевич с целью изучения опыта подготовки и проведения ежегодной сессии в Тбилиси. И, пользуясь случаем, хочу сказать большое спасибо спикеру грузинского парламента господину Усупашвили за высокую организацию сессии как для нас, так и создание всех необходимых условий для нашей рабочей группы, чтобы поделиться с нами опытом подготовки сегодняшней сессии, что, конечно, поможет нам в организации следующей сессии у нас в Минске. Надеюсь, что решение бюро будет сегодня поддержано постоянным комитетом, и в следующем году мы будем иметь честь приветствовать вас на нашей гостеприимной белорусской земле. Благодарю за внимание и поддержку.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kaminski, for that. And indeed, the decision has, of course, already been endorsed, and we thank you for your offer and look forward to visiting you in Minsk. So 7.4 is the autumn meeting in 2017, and which Andorra has kindly offered to host. And if the representative from Andorra is here, would Mrs. Naudi wish to say anything? Yes, please, you have the floor.
Oui, bonjour. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci, Monsieur le Secrétaire Général. En effet, donc, on espère vous recevoir tous en Andorre, donc, en septembre-octobre 2017. Nous commençons à préparer cette assemblée avec beaucoup d'honneur. On a vraiment envie de vous recevoir à tous et je pense vraiment que vous ne serez pas déçus. On a l'expérience aussi d'organiser de gros événements, pas dans le champ parlementaire, mais aussi des conférences, des championnats du monde. Donc je pense qu'on pourra vraiment vous offrir une belle assemblée au mois d'octobre 2017. Merci à tous.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nadi, and I'm sure that we will all look forward to visiting you in Andorra. Now, in 2018, which is getting a little further away, the annual session is proposed to be held in Germany, and I didn't know whether our treasurer, Mrs. Barnett, head of the German delegation, wishes to make any comment at this stage.
Ja, vielen Dank für die Möglichkeit, hier noch einmal an uns, an meine lieben Kollegen aus den Mitgliedsländern die Einladung zu richten. Der Bundestag freut sich sehr darauf, Sie im Juli 2018 in der Hauptstadt Berlin begrüßen zu können. Und es wird uns wieder eine Freude sein, Sie dann in den Räumlichkeiten auch des Bundestages die Sitzungen abhalten zu lassen, dass Sie dann sehen, wo wir immer tagen. Die Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus dem entsprechenden aus der Bundestagsverwaltung sind auch hier jetzt mit dabei und schauen sich das alles an, damit sie bestens versorgt werden in Berlin. Und ich verspreche Ihnen, wir kümmern uns auch ein bisschen um das Wetter, dass wir schönes Wetter haben, dass wir vielleicht auch eine schöne Fahrt auf der Spree haben oder auf dem Wannsee. Auf jeden Fall wird es eine intensive, aber auch gleichzeitig sehr schöne Jahrestagung werden. Und ich hoffe, viele von Ihnen werden wieder gewählt in den kommenden Jahren, sodass wir uns alle gesund und munter 2018, also in 2 Jahren, in Berlin sehen können.
Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Barnett, and we can look forward to that as well. Now, I have also understand from the Secretariat that following a visit by Vice President Matunin to Kyrgyzstan, a preliminary agreement's been reached with the Kazakh delegation regarding a possibility of them hosting the 2018 autumn meeting. If the delegation from Kyrgyzstan is here, would Mr. Tekebev, head of the delegation, wish to make any comment? Yes? Yes, Kyrgyzstan, please.
Уважаемый председатель, уважаемый генеральный секретарь, уважаемые коллеги, мы будем рады вас встретить в Кыргызстане в 2018 году. Кыргызстан находится, кто не знает, в Средней Азии. Это где-то между Афганистаном и с Китаем. Наш регион имеет древнюю и интересную историю. И мы надеемся, что блестящую перспективу. Но, тем не менее, есть масса проблем. Уважаемые коллеги, мы бы просили изучить, исследовать эту проблему. Межпарламентская ассамблея является авторитетной международной организацией. Проведение сессии в Кыргызстане имело бы важное значение не только для нас, но для всего региона. Мы вас ждем в Кыргызстане.
Thank you very much indeed, and I'm sure all members here hope that we can take that very generous offer forward and look forward to visiting you in your own country. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I don't know whether any other members of the Standing Committee wish to say anything or make any comments about future meetings of the Assembly. You will have heard the appeal from the platform earlier this morning that, of course, member parliaments that have not hosted are encouraged to put their names forward. Anybody should have any other comments? There are a lot of other conversations going on, but if there are anybody who wishes to make a comment about the matter that the Standing Committee is actually discussing, if they put their hand up, I will endeavour to make sure they're heard. Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other items, other business? I see and hear no one. I assume the case is no. In that case, I'm going to conclude this meeting, and before so doing, remind you that the opening plenary session begins at 2:30 this afternoon. Thank you very much. The Standing Committee is concluded.